Chapter 414. Chapter 414, Primal Chaos Source Rock. Reverie _ Great, now it was even livelier with all sorts of demons and beasts showing up. Dreg of Thousand Corpse Sect, how dare you to come here, you court death. A flower blossom tier elite attacked, swatting at Rong Huanxian. Everyone had the right to execute a disciple of such an evil sect no matter how high or low. Even if Rong Huanxian had the title of an alchemist, it would be the same. It could be inferred just how despised and resented the Thousand Corpse Sect was. Even after a millennium, the sight of this sect still gave people the urge to kill. Gagaga, want to kill this lord? You're still 10 millennia too early. Rong Huanxian laughed loudly, but he only paid lip service as he immediately wormed into Three Lives' corpse casket. His main body was certainly undying, but his flesh was too fragile. Only at the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier, he couldn't possibly resist a Flower Blossom tier warrior's attacks. Wang, wang, wang. The attacks landed on the Three Lives' corpse casket, and instantly, this spirit tool was activated. Vein-like lines shined as if the entire casket was coming to life. Shua, a pillar of light, surged out and turned into a skeleton soldier with a pike in hand, thrusting towards the Flower Blossom tier elite. Pu, with a spear thrust, the Flower Blossom tier's left shoulder was penetrated. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. That was a Flower Blossom tier warrior, but he couldn't even block an attack. If he hadn't evaded in time, his heart might have been shocked. It was too terrifying. What sort of treasure was that, being able to suppress even Flower Blossom tier opponents? However, some people looked towards Ling Han with strange gazes, because Ling Han also struck it once earlier. Why did nothing happen at all? The sword in the youngster's hand, could it actually be a high-tier spirit tool? Ling Han also gasped in surprise inwardly. Both were 10th tier spirit tools, but Three Lives' corpse casket was too kick-ass. Hiding inside the casket, one would not only have invincible defense, but also have thorns attached to oneself. Whoever hit it would be out of luck. More importantly, Three Lives' corpse casket could also move on its own like a carriage. It was very convenient. However, if Ling Han was made to hide in a casket, he definitely wouldn't do it. Three Lives' corpse casket. That's Three Lives' corpse casket. Elder Nine Cloud's eyes brightened up. Thousand Corpse Sect had 3 priceless treasures, which were the demonic noise saber, the pond of the underworld, and the Three Lives' corpse casket. However, the pond of the underworld wasn't a spirit tool, but an inherited land of Thousand Corpse Sect. It was also a holy place for cultivation. Cultivating inside for a year could equal 1 year on the outside. But its location was unknown since several millennia ago. Today, the demonic noise saber was grasped by the current sect master. Followed by the appearance of the Three Lives' corpse casket, it meant 2 out of 3 prized treasure appeared. Was appearance of the pond of the underworld still something distant? Was the Thousand Corpse Sect going to prosper? Elder Nine Clouds was mad with excitement. If he could obtain the spirit tool that could accommodate living things from Ling Han, the Thousand Corpse Sect could enter its golden age, even surpassing the dynasty several millennia ago. Rong Huaxian laughed eerily and said, "This lord won't play with you guys anymore. Once this lord obtains the Primal Chaos Source Stone and refines it as this lord's body, the entire world will tremble under this lord's clutches." Primal Chaos Source Stone? Was it the Black Stone? The question flashed across Ling Han's mind as he attacked unhesitatingly once again. He definitely wouldn't allow Azura Demon Emperor to obtain the Black Stone. The Thousand Corpse Sect could still be suppressed no matter how strong they were, but Azura Demon Emperor? That was a god spirit, and once his battle prowess fully recovered, the vast lands would face calamity. Insolent boy, when this lord's cultivation is recovered, this lord will kill you first. Rong Huanxian yelled angrily, steering the Three Lives' corpse casket and charging into the demonic chi. No one dared to stop him as the misfortune of the Flower Blossom tier earlier was still in front of them, and no one wanted to share the same fate. Ling Han chased swiftly after, and Hunyo naturally charged into the demonic chi as well. The two instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. The demonic chi was not only dense enough to block vision, but also had a strong effect of cutting off divine sense. Consequently, even Flower Blossom tiers immediately lost the trace of the 3 people. At this moment, everyone only thought of 2 words: Damned idiot. That was demonic chi. Couldn't it be seen that even flower blossom tier elites weren't willing to be contaminated? What were a few small spiritual ocean tier and gushing spring tier warriors trying to do by running into it? The flower blossom tiers carried out a fierce battle again, unleashing their attacks at the demonic ape. These were separate matters. Boy, don't think that this lord will fear you just because your tier is higher than this lord. Rong Huan Xian's voice came from within the casket. He was only at the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier and couldn't possibly rival Ling Han. When this lord refines some primal chaos demonic chi and increases in cultivation, retrieving the primal chaos source rock, your life will be taken as blood sacrifice for this lord's rebirth. Oh, that primal chaos source rock or whatever can make you stronger. Ling Han said indifferently. Rong Huan Xian snorted and said, this lord transformed from a sliver of the world's primal chaos demonic chi and suffered for not having flesh, which was why this lord was suppressed for several millennia and split into 9 parts. However, primal chaos source rock and this lord are of the same source as one of the world's toughest matter. This lord only has to refine it into a body. Who in the world would be able to rival this lord then? Haha, when the time comes, this lord's flesh will be invincible, equipped with overwhelming demonic psychic powers. All will become this lord's slaves. This old monster was so honest all of a sudden, even revealing his trump card. Thinking again, he actually didn't reveal any secrets, saying only where he came from but not how to annihilate him. No wonder that several millennia ago, his body could only be dismembered then suppressed. He wasn't a living thing in the true sense, but rather a manifestation of demonic chi. Rong Huan Xian didn't simply boast, as he was in the process of absorbing the demonic chi. Wang, the presence he emitted was strengthening. Although it was still at the gushing spring tier, it could clearly be sensed that his tier was improving extremely quickly. Ling Han sighed. Why did he always encounter monsters? Ideas flashed across his mind. With the protection of the 3 lives corpse casket, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop Rong Huan Xian's tier increase. However, where did the demonic chi in this land come from? There was definitely a black stone that released the demonic chi, but it was suppressed by the large mountain and could only spread through the ground into the forest. Now, it was as if it turned into an ocean. If he retrieved the black stone, or the primal chaos source rock in Rong Huan Xian's words, then everything could be taken care of. Ling Han decided on spot and pulled on Hu Niu to leave, beginning to search for the land where the demonic chi originated. He asked Small Tower about primal chaos source rock and demonic chi. Small Tower unexpectedly knew the relationship between the two, telling him several secrets. If Azura Demon Emperor really absorbed the primal chaos source rock, then he at least wouldn't be killed on those vast lands, as primal chaos source rock was too hard. However, this didn't seem to make a difference. Azura Demon Emperor was originally a ball of demonic chi, but couldn't he still cause disasters for millennia even after being split into 9 parts? Demonic chi was like the vast ocean. Ling Han's divine sense couldn't be spread out and black spots already began to appear on his body. The divine sense was the same, no longer clear as water, but instead filled with violent impulses. In contrast, Hu Niu was perfectly fine, but an indistinct light appeared in her dantian, as if a vein-like pattern had been lit up. The little girl was much more freakish than he was. He flashed into the Black Tower and immediately summoned the power of the Black Tower to dispel the demonic chi in his body. His skin returned quickly to normal at a visible speed and his divine sense opened up, clear and immaculate. Ling Han exited the Black Tower again. With the experience of resisting the Black Stone, he could survive for several minutes even within such dense demonic chi. Niu, let's race to see who can find a rock like this. Ling Han smiled at Hu Niu as he dangled a small black stone in his hand. Okay, Hu Niu immediately said in a crisp voice, appearing very excited as she shot out. If Niu wins, Niu wants to eat 3 roasted chicken drumstick. Chapter 415 Merging of the Demonic Body. Chapter 415 Merging of the Demonic Body. Reverie _ Ling Han and Hu Niu went on a great search, but this large area was covered by demonic chi and obstructed eyesight and divine sense, largely affecting their scouting ability. Even Hu Niu was no exception. For 3 consecutive days, they obtained no results. This was the area of a mountain. Even if it wasn't large, it wouldn't be small, either. Rong Huanxian's strength was increasing rapidly. He obtained the inheritance of the Thousand Corpse sect and could only cultivate corpse qi, but an old monster entered his body, granting him the ability to cultivate demonic qi. Under the endless devouring, it was almost one day for one layer. Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual ocean tier after 2 days, and today he was already at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Shocking progress. At this rate, another 7 days and he would reach the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and then 2 more days and he would be at the spiritual pedestal tier. Once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, with the mystic arts Azura Demon Emperor grasped on top of 3 lives corpse casket, he would possess sufficient confidence to suppress Ling Han. And after another 10 days, 20 days, and 30 days, what cultivation would Rong Huanxian reach? It just so happened that under the 3 lives corpse casket's protection, Rong Huanxian was also as if he'd possessed the Black Tower. No one could harm him, at least, Ling Han currently couldn't. He had to find the black stone fast. While Rong Huanxian was only absorbing the drifting demonic qi, he still could advance so shockingly fast. Then if he truly refined the black stone as his body, just how strong would he be? Ling Han and Hu Niu continued to search, and as each day passed, they became more and more pressured. Ling Han had already stopped caring about the battle outside. If the demonic ape didn't run, it would definitely be annihilated. After all, the human elites rushed over continuously. So what if the demonic ape was a beast king? On the 11th day, Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Such speed would make anyone envious. Gagaga, this lord has come to find you. Rong Huanxian's grim laughter sounded within the demonic qi. So fast. He had no need to increase his tier to the height of the flower blossom tier or the spiritual infant tier, because he would soon abandon this Bedino living creature's flesh was truly suitable carrier for his soul. Only the primal chaos source rock was the best. Therefore, he only needed enough strength to suppress Ling Han, taking down that brat and obtaining the mysterious spirit tool which kept even him preoccupied. Inside the demonic qi, his battle prowess received a surprising amplification, so the spiritual pedestal tier was definitely enough. On the other hand, he was truly scared that Ling Han would find the primal chaos source rock, ruining his opportunity. Ling Han bellowed, notifying Hu Niu to meet up with him in case she encountered Rong Huanxian and suffered a loss. On this land demonic qi pervaded, his and Hu Niu's senses were greatly restricted, especially Hu Niu's. Her forte was speed, but when she couldn't even see clearly, blindly running around would get her into a mishap. Old devil, come battle with this young grandpa. Ling Han laughed loudly. He seemed young, but his soul was from millennia ago. He felt somewhat like an old man faced with anyone here. He didn't need to pretend to be immature only in front of Azura Demon Emperor, as he certainly was much younger. Stubborn brat, when this lord overran the world, your oldest ancestors were drinking milk somewhere. How dare you act insolently in front of this lord? Today, this lord will annihilate you completely. This lord is very interested in that treasure you bear. Rong Huanxian sneered. Why so much useless talk, just bring it on. Ling Han retreated in a rush. He had no interest in fighting Rong Huanxian as the latter had the 3 lives corpse casket and was unkillable just like him. Finding the black stone was the kingly way. Rong Huanxian flew over, sticking out his right hand and clenching it. The demonic qi in this space danced wildly, turning into a giant hand that snatched at Ling Han. Gagaga, unexpected, right? This lord originally manifested from primal chaos demonic qi, and my battle prowess here can increase tenfold. Let's see where you'll hide. Rong Huanxian laughed loudly. Not necessarily. Ling Han's figure flashed, unleashing a punch and activating the thunder battle armor. Instantly, lightning surged and turned into an 8-headed war elephant, greeting the Black Hand. Hong. The lightning war elephant charging at the Black Hand was as if a mantis trying to stop a chariot, shattering its own body yet not even able to slow down the Black Hand by single bit. As expected, Rong Huanxian said that his battle prowess here could increase tenfold and that definitely wasn't a bluff. Die for this lord. Rong Huanxian clenched his right hand. The Black Hand also clenched tightly, devouring Ling Han's figure. However, Rong Huanxian immediately frowned because he felt Ling Han had already disappeared. The attack didn't grasp Ling Han. As expected, when the black hand disappeared, Ling Han also appeared unscathed. Old devil, although you shrunk into a turtle shell in the past few days, I couldn't do anything about you. However, if you want to hurt me, that's also a pipe dream. Ling Han laughed loudly. Rong Huanxian's gaze was chilly and his expression filled with anger, but he knew Ling Han was right. The two of them certainly couldn't deal with the other. He felt a fit of irritation inside, but didn't care too much as he already realized that inside Devil Sky Mystery Realm. Then the next best thing was to find the primal chaos source rock and refine it as his body and then suppress Ling Han, seizing the treasure on the latter. Line Han, Nyo found the large rock. Nyo's one. Nyo's cheerful voice resounded as a black stone the size of a buffalo ran over with 2 tiny feet on the bottom. This scene was somewhat strange. It was mainly because Nyo was too small while carrying the rock, only her 2 feet could be seen. Gagaga, you specially delivered the primal chaos source rock for this lord, thanks so much. Rong Huanxian exulted. He no longer paid attention to Ling Han, snatching at the black stone with a palm. Once he touched the black stone, he would transform into his true body and enter it, abandoning the current human shell. When he completely refined the primal chaos source rock as his own body and found the other 8 suppressed remnant souls, would he even need to fear Heaven's Sword sect in its former years? This is Ling Han's, not for you. Nyo yelled, dissatisfied. Xiao, the black stone vanished into thin air and Rong Huanxian's palm snatched nothing. He hurriedly turned his head, only to see that Nyo carried the rock and appeared before Ling Han. Teleportation. The little girl actually used the art of teleportation. Rong Huanxian was somewhat dumbfounded as teleportation involved the great Tao of space, and even in his world, only a few could master it. However, a little girl of the mortal world could use it with ease whilst carrying such a large primal chaos source rock. It made even him feel it beyond comprehension. Moreover, he also just noticed why could Nyo also be unafraid of the effects of demonic chi? Nyo, good one. Ling Han guffawed, picking up Nyo in one scoop, ready to put this little girl inside the Black Tower at any time. No, that belongs to this lord. Rong Huanxian hurriedly dove over. Seeing the black stone inches before him, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Primal chaos source rock as a body was a dream of his kind. Touched it. Azura Demon Emperor unhesitatingly removed his soul from Rong Huanxian's body and wormed into the black stone. Chapter 416, Terribly Conned. Chapter 416, Terribly Conned. Haha. Ling Han laughed loudly. With a casual toss of his hand, the black rock inside his grasp was immediately thrown out. No, the Azura Demon Emperor roared in fury. He had indeed possessed the primal chaos source rock, but the problem was this piece of primal chaos source rock was much too small. It was actually the size of a peanut and there was only a pitifully small amount of chaos source within. When members of his race took over the bodies of other living things, they indeed paid no mind to the build of their victims. It could be as small as the golden mosquito or as big as the howling heaven beast, and they could adapt anyways. Moreover, even if they were not satisfied, then they could always change to a new body. At worst, they would only experience a period of weakness. But the primal chaos source rock was different. Once fused, this was an irreversible process. He could never come back out. If the primal chaos source rock was big enough and possessed sufficient chaos source, this would give them unlimited space to expand. They would be able to swallow all the souls in this world and fuse with them. They would then be able to endlessly increase their personal power until it reached the maximum amount the primal chaos source rock could allow. Which also meant that the bigger the primal chaos source rock was, the more chaos source it contained, and thus the bigger his potential to become stronger. But the problem was not that the primal chaos source rock was too big, but that it was too small, much too small. It was so small that it could only accommodate a shattered piece of his soul. Moreover, there was only a scrap of chaos source inside, and he could not possibly increase his power with that. What did that mean? It meant that his power would eternally stagnate on this level, and he might not even be able to reabsorb the other 8 pieces of his soul. Of course, there was still a way to solve this matter, and that was for this piece of his soul would be swallowed. How could this be? The primal chaos source rock he had seen was definitely not as small as this. Ling Han laughed quietly. The instant that he was knocked down by the Azura Demon Emperor, he drew the large black rock into the black tower, then withdrew the small black rock and shoved it at the former. Furthermore, the chaos source in this small black rock had been largely sucked out by small tower, so there was only a slight sliver remaining. Sure enough, the Azura Demon Emperor did not even pause to think, overwhelmed by his anxiety. The moment he sensed the aura of the black rock, he immediately streamed inside. Small Tower had told him of the relationship between primal chaos demonic chi and primal chaos source rock. Thus, he came up with this plan in that single instant and managed to successfully dupe the Azura Demon Emperor. That small black rock actually began to shake, trying its best to transform into human form. Ling Han rushed forward and delivered a kick. "Old demon, I'll see you next time." The pitiful Azura Demon Emperor was in the process of fusing with the primal chaos source rock. Since the two of them came from the same source, this process, once begun, was unstoppable. So how could he possibly be capable of defending himself? He instantly flew off into distance from the force of the kick. "You damn human boy, just wait, I will definitely kill you." Azura Demon Emperor roared in fury. He had been horribly conned. "I've finally vented my grudge." Ling Han laughed loudly. Now, the Azura Demon Emperor only possessed 1/9 of the power he'd possessed at his strongest at most. Even if he possessed an immortal body, he could still be suppressed, and it would be much easier to deal with him in this way. And now that the primal chaos source rock had been removed, the demonic chi in this place would slowly disperse until it became nothing. By that time, this dark devil forest would be history. Phew, he was in a good mood. Ling Han laughed. Being able to ruthlessly con an old Demonan immortal monster from millennia past caused a sense of fulfillment to spring up unbidden. There was only one word for it: invigorating. He heard moaning and saw that Ronghorn Xian was actually getting to his feet staggeringly. Fuck, this guy was still alive. Ling Han knew that his body had not died before, but being taken over by the Azura Demon Emperor, his consciousness was actually not erased. When had the Azura Demon Emperor become so kind? "You never thought that I would be still alive, right?" Ronghorn Xian stared fixatedly at Ling Han. He had never been on good terms with Ling Han from the moment they met. This Ronghorn Xian was the original Ronghorn Xian, and also the real Ronghorn Xian. Ling Han sighed and said, "Sure enough, good people don't live long, whereas evil survives 1,000 years. He's still not dead even with that. Ha 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 ha, I refine corpse chi, so I won't die so easily." Ronghorn Xian stared at Ling Han and said with a cold smirk, "I not only did not die, furthermore, my power is superior to yours. Ari, my previous good mood has now been ruined." Ling Han shook his head. "If we're being honest here, I am your savior at the very least. Is this how you are going to repay me? I will refine you into a corpse soldier and allow you to exist forever. That'll be good enough, right?" Ronghorn Xian laughed loudly and took the initiative to attack. A smile appeared at the corners of Ling Han's lips as he said, "It seems that you are being smug too soon." He advanced to parry the oncoming attack, without any signs of fear. Peng! The two attacks collided and Ronghorn Xian was forced into a continuous retreat. A flush appeared on his pale face as if he had dabbed blusher on his cheeks. "How could this happen?" Ronghorn Xian exclaimed in shock. He actually lost to Ling Han in a clash of force. "Let me kindly explain it to you." Ling Han smiled slightly. "You managed to enter the spiritual pedestal tier because of the demonic chi, but it was the Azura Demon Emperor who was guiding things. You yourself do not cultivate demonic chi, so how could you possibly make full use of that kind of power? Moreover, you are only in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and without the demonic chi in this place compounding with your own ability, I will be able to suppress you 17 or 18 times with one arm." Ronghorn Xian fumed angrily. A brat in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier actually pointed at his nose and said that he was just in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. How could that still be logical? However, there was one thing that Ling Han was right about, and that was none of the members of the Thousand Corpse sect was known for their own personal ability, but rather depended on their corpse soldier. He now had no corpse soldiers to help him, so he was only an ordinary cultivator of the spiritual pedestal tier. Furthermore, he was a cultivator that had just broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Putting Ling Han aside, even Shen Zhongcheng would be able to kill him. Now that I've regained my body, I will begin to cultivate corpse qi again. When I obtain powerful corpse soldier, I will come to seek you again. Rong Huanxian left behind a line that fit the situation, and jumped into the 3 live corpse caskets. Hong, the spirit tool activated and fled. Since he could not beat his foe, then he of course had to flee, or what? Staying for supper? I temporarily suppressed a problem, but I've also gotten a new problem. I don't know if this is right or wrong, Ling Han mumbled. He had now split Rong Huanxian into 2. Though the ability of the Azura Demon Emperor was under control now, he had transformed into a real undying body, whereas Rong Huanxian was revived. With the protection of the 3 live corpse caskets, he, too, possessed an undying body. The so-called undying body is only relative. Ling Han soon smiled confidently. As long as my power is strong to a certain extent, even if Rong Huanxian hid himself in the 3 live corpse caskets, I would still be able to kill him with a shock wave. As for the primal chaos source rock? If this thing was really indestructible, how could it have been shattered in the first place? The small black rock from inside the brain of the giant serpent had most likely fallen off from the big black rock. This meant that the primal chaos source rock could be shattered. I've already obtained the primal chaos source rock and the heavenly luckstone. Now I only need to get the crimson red chilling icegrass, and this trip to the dark devil forest will be over. Not just over, merely the heavenly luckstone had made this trip more than worth it. Furthermore, though Ling Han could not use the primal chaos source rock, its value was estimated to be 100-fold, 1,000-fold, or even millionfold the value of the heavenly luckstone. One had to understand that this was an item that could be useful to the Black Tower. Ling Han planned to leave behind a small piece to improve his divine sense. The rest would be refined by the Black Tower, which would extract the source power inside to repair itself. The 2 of them advanced in the opposite direction of the valley. He did not want to encounter anyone else at this time. He only wanted to quietly collect the crimson red chilling icegrass, then return to Extreme Yang City. When he obtained the last ingredient, the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, he would finally be able to concoct the Restore Spirit Pill. Chapter 417, Finding a Sparring Partner. Chapter 417, Finding a Sparring Partner. Ling Han kept only a small piece of black rock, whereas he passed the rest over to Small Tower to use to repair the latter. In an instant, the whole black rock was turned to dust, and the chaos source inside was completely extracted by Small Tower. He could not help but think that if Azura Demon Emperor entered the Black Tower, then even if he obtained a humongous piece of the primal chaos source rock and made it into his body, it would be pointless, as it would still be absorbed completely and turned to dust. Ling Han did not immediately head to where the crimson red chilling icegrass was. He was still in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so he had to wait some more. He decided to head there after he broke through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Even if he went there now, he could only sit and wait, and this did not fit Ling Han's personality. As a result, he and Hu Niu stolid around the forest. There were still a lot of other spiritual herbs here, and since they still had time, why shouldn't they go and find some? Their harvest was quite good, but after a few more days, the majority of the demonic qi here had dispersed and more people surged into this area. Thus, Ling Han's yield also went on decline. He rubbed his chin, and ultimately decided that he could not waste any more time. Thus, he carved on the trunk of a tree, "Dinger Go One, come and chase your young master." These words were naturally left for Ding Yuan Xin. He still wanted to make use of the latter to improve himself, breaking through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as soon as possible with the man's help. As he moved, he kept carving those words here and there. He believed that with Ding Yuan Xin's ability, the latter should be able to find him from the clues he had left behind. Hu Niu followed his example and began carving on the tree trunks as well. However, don't look at how pretty and delicate she was. The letters she carved were all bent and misshapen. But she still proudly crouched down and carved happily, completely unembarrassed about her poor writing. Only a day passed, and true enough, Ding Yuan Xin had caught up. I cannot deny it, You are indeed very courageous. Ding Yuan-shin said icily, flames of rage burning in his eyes. This young man killed his younger brother and now still dared to actively provoke him. He was really about to die from his towering rage. I'm just average, but the second bravest in this world. Ling Han smiled. Average, but number one in the world, Hunyo said without any modesty, patting her tiny chest. You too. Ding Yuan-shin roared in fury. His figure pounced in attack towards Ling Han and Hunyo. His spiritual pedestal shone, surrounding him and making him appear as if he himself was a god. Ling Han laughed loudly and drew his sword to attack. Instantly, 8 flashes of sword chi shot out. When he saw this, Ding Yuan-shin was naturally infuriated. This guy only managed to gain his 8th flash of sword chi because of the pressure he had put on him. When he thought of that fact, he felt as if he was burning in flames of fury. Could it be that now that this brat had had a taste of success and once again took him to be a polishing stone for his own power? However, he stared fixatedly at the demon birth sword. Previously, he only knew that this was a high-level spirit tool, which gave him a shock that caused his spirit to throb. Yet afterwards, when he saw that this sword was actually capable of causing the 3 lives corpse caskets to vibrate, he as well as everyone else present of course knew that the demon birth sword was definitely not something as ordinary as a level 6 or even a level 7 spirit tool. Who would not covet it? This sword is now mine. He humphed coldly, moving as quick as lightning. Ling Han tried his utter best and launched a counterattack at Ding Yuan-shin. However, there was too much of a gap between their respective cultivation levels. As a result, Ling Han was very soon riddled with wounds. One could even see the white of bones from some of the deeper wounds. Thankfully, the indestructible heaven scroll was too mighty, and allowed him to maintain his life force at a shocking state of vigor. It was only when he bled so much that even his sight was beginning to blur that Ling Han finally began to flee. As he fled, he kept drawing out ginseng and other nutritious medicines and devoured them like crazy. He also used the indestructible heaven scroll to recover his own injuries. As he retreated, he continued to battle. He was not fleeing because he was losing. He tried his absolute best in this battle, but after 3 days, he had still reached his limit and had no choice but to duck into the Black Tower. At this point, there was no single patch of unscathed skin on his body. Even with the circulation of the indestructible heaven scroll, the rate at which he suffered injuries far exceeded the rate at which he could heal himself, which forced him to have 1 foot past the boundary of death. He quickly circulated a drop of the indestructible true fluid to recover. Very quickly, he regrew blood and flesh and had completely recovered from his previous state. After swallowing a few alchemical pills that were used for cultivation, he crushed a few hundred origin crystals. Instantly, an endless amount of origin power enveloped him. He greedily absorbed it and his cultivation gradually increased. He actually cultivated for 2 whole days and nights, and when he ended his cultivation, he had already quietly broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Very good, this sparring partner is not bad. Perhaps, after 1 more month, I not only will be able to break through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but even rush up to the peak period of the 9th layer. Ling Han mumbled, unafraid how depressed and frustrated these words would make Ding Yuan-shin if he heard them. Let's go and find my sparring partner. Ling Han continued to leave messages behind, whereas Hunyo helped to leave messages as well, giggling while damaging this area of the forest with her hideous writing. Another 2 days passed, and Ding Yuan-shin had indeed caught up with them again. 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ding Yuan-shin gasped in shock when he swept his eyes over Ling Han, his eyeballs practically popping out of his head. He was frustrated. This brat had really taken him to be a sparring partner. Not only had he formed his 8th flash of sword chi from the constant battles, now he had even broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he continued to battle with this brat, then wouldn't the latter be able to advance towards the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at a terrifying rate, or even, directly break through to the spiritual pedestal tier? He was really a bit scared now. Ling Han's battle prowess was too monstrous. Perhaps, once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, Ling Han would be able to rival him. How could he bear with the fact that he himself had cultivated an opponent that could kill him? But this brat killed his younger brother, so how could he spare him? Kill, he definitely had to kill him. At least for now, this brat's ability was far beneath his. Ding Yuanxin did not know that Ling Han still had the Black Tower and possessed a final trump card to ensure his survival in fatal danger. Otherwise, he would definitely turn around and leave immediately. It was just like battling Rong Huanxian. He could always duck and hide himself into the 3 lives corpse caskets, and if someone in the flower blossom tier at least delivered a palm strike to this spirit tool, he could still kill himself with the strike. Do you dare to battle me to the death? Ding Yuanxin provoked him. Is there something wrong with your head? I'm only in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier and you are in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and you want me to battle you to the death? Idiot. Ling Han shook his head, yet took the initiative to attack. The demonal birth sword was drawn and sword chi shot forwards like rainbows. Just obediently be my sparring partner, damn you. Ding Yuanxin was unbelievably furious and stepped forward to counter Ling Han's attack. Previously, there were a few times that he had nearly managed to kill Ling Han. Thus, he was still quite confident in himself. If Ling Han was just that slightest bit unlucky, then he would definitely be able to kill the former. Unfortunately, he was always just that slightest bit away from killing Ling Han. After battling for 3 days, Ling Han once again entered the Black Tower in a near-death state. After circulating a drop of the indestructible true fluid, he directly passed out. When he woke up, he hurriedly began to cultivate. His improvement could obviously be seen. He had reached the middle period of the 8th layer, and what was even harder to come by was the fact that because he was so very near to death this time round, this gave him a deeper understanding about life and death. Life and death, they were opposites, but the end of life was death, and the end of death was life. It was an endless loop, like Taiji 2. This conformed to the Tao of the world, which was Tao begets 1, and 1 begets 2. Order and chaos, life and death, light and darkness, these opposites and cycles could be traced back to the source. However, Ling Han's current cultivation level was too low, he could only be moved, but was not able to comprehend. He allocated these stirred-up thoughts on the path of the sword, clear which path he wanted to follow. Sword Chi, Sword Ray, anyone could form these 2 states. But Sword Heart was different. This was a kind of higher level, which required one to possess his own path. In his last life, the path that the Sword Emperor took was the path of rulers. The moment he drew his sword, the whole world would crawl before him. The setting sun Saber Emperor had taken the path of heartlessness. He could cut down without any bit of hesitation even the source of all life, the sun. Then what kind of path should he take? Chapter 418, Path of the Strongest. Chapter 418, Path of the Strongest. It was definitely not too early to consider this question. He would very soon break through to the spiritual pedestal tier, and after he constructed his spiritual pedestal, he would be able to step into the flower blossom tier, whereupon he would then cast off his mortality. And at that time, cultivators would have really stepped onto the path to search for Tao. Therefore, there was a need for him to confirm which path he wanted to take before he reached the flower blossom tier. In his last life, in accordance with the nature of his spirit base, he chose the path of fire. He studied the might of fire and advanced on this path towards the source. This kind of path that used one of the 5 elements or lightning, such basic elements, was also the choice that the majority of cultivators would make. However, the most common, most widely chosen path was usually not the strongest choice to make. Otherwise, the Sword Emperor, the setting Sun Saber Emperor, and the likes had chosen to walk completely different paths. In this lifetime, Ling Han was to pursue becoming the strongest, and naturally could not possibly walk the path that he had once taken before. Even if having walked this path once would allow him to walk smoothly and unhindered all the way to the top, he wanted to switch to a different path, a path that would allow him to become even stronger. I want to battle with all possible opponents. Whoever blocks my advance, I will defeat. I do not want to become a ruler standing at the highest position to be revered by all. This is not something I am willing to become. What I pursue is merely to be the strongest. The extreme strongest that is capable of defeating any kind of opponent. The path of the strongest. Ling Han rubbed his chin. But the problem was, did such a path exist? I have to believe in myself. Since there is this kind of belief, then there must be this kind of path. My sword will be able to cut all, it will be able to cut spirit tools, divine tools, even capable of shattering the void or cutting even God. Ling Han's will was determined. He had confirmed it. The path he wanted was to take the path of the strongest, and his sword was the path of the strongest. At the moment, he still needed to use spirit tools, but when he formed the strongest sword within his heart, he could form the strongest sword that could cut all with a single flick of his finger. After confirming the path that he wanted to take, Ling Han's will became increasingly determined. It was as if he had obtained a new life. Streams of divine light flickered around him, making for a shocking scene. However, he soon withdrew his martial intent and returned to looking absolutely ordinary. He was closer and closer to returning to his true self. It was as if he was a peerless treasured sword that was still concealed within its sheath. Only when drawn would he release 100,000 feet of luster that could cut everything. I feel like I've touched the doorstep to the 9th flash of sword chi. Ling Han smiled. He had just decided on his future path, and it actually caused his spirit to brighten and allowed him to gain a great advance on the path of the sword. Now should be the time for sparring partner Ding to appear and give me enough pressure and motivation for me to polish out the 9th flash of sword chi. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and continued to leave provoking messages behind. This time was even faster. After merely half a day, Ding Yuanshin had caught up. You are too arrogant, Ding Yuanshin said through gritted teeth. He had almost killed this brat last time, but not 2 days had passed, and he had again appeared all lively and active to pick a fight with him. This was practically being without any fear of death. You're a good person. Ling Han smiled. Nyo thinks you're a good person too. Hu Nyo nodded. Ding Yuanshin was almost driven mad with fury. These two really took him to be their sparring partner. His eyes focused on Hu Nyo. He did not manage to kill Ling Han after so many clashes, but this little girl should not be so difficult to kill, right? Since Ling Han had killed his younger brother, then he would also kill one of Ling Han's family and make him experience the feeling of heartache as well. Die. He leaped forwards and charged to attack Hu Nyo. Your opponent is Ling Han, not Nyo. Hu Nyo used her movement technique and instantly disappeared like a shooting star. Her speed was so fast that Ding Yuanshin could only watch in dumbstruck shock. Fuck, this was a little monster. Ding Yuanshin was astonished. Ling Han was also very monstrous, but at least his monstrosity was still within an acceptable range. But that the little snip was actually so fast that even he could not catch her movements. That was too much. Dinger go, you can't catch Nyo. Hu Nyo exclaimed proudly, and again began carving on a tree trunk. Ding Yuanshin almost went mad in his utter rage. He was just wondering who it could be that made a carving of his name so hideous. So it seemed that it was this damn little girl. He turned to glare at Ling Han, his eyes filled with flames of fury. Ling Han spread his hands and said, I know that the writing is a bit ugly, but you're already so old, so even if it's a bit ugly, it's fine. Anyways, you're not going to use it to seduce any girls. Fuck. Ding Yuanshin was mad with anger. All over his body, closely set patterns appeared that transformed into endless flames which surged to surround Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly and drew his sword to parry. Instantly, 8 flashes of sword chi danced unhindered. But how terrifying was the battle prowess of 15 battle stars of a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. Immediately, he was wounded and a couple of his bones were broken from the powerful shockwave. Various burns also appeared on his body. The sight was too horrible to look at. However, his eyes were still extremely bright. The path of the strongest did not mean that he could never be beaten, but no matter how many times he was defeated, he would stand back up again, defeat his powerful foe, and continue his advance to the top. With the support of this kind of belief, the 9th flash of sword chi seemed ready to come out at his call. Ding Yuanshin, in any case, was at the level of a prodigy, and very soon sensed the change in Ling Han. He could not help but be slightly shocked. He felt that Ling Han was like a caterpillar that had become a cocoon. In the moment that it ripped out of its cocoon, it would be able to transform into a magnificent butterfly and display its luxurious beauty. This kind of feeling made him extremely displeased. Could it be that he was really only capable of becoming a polishing stone but was not able to kill Ling Han at all? Ling Han forced him into a crisis. The battle prowess of 15 battle stars of the spiritual pedestal tier had far exceeded his limit, and the result of a straight-on clash was that he would hover over the boundary between life and death. And if it was not for the fact that he still had the thunder battle armor to protect himself and the sturdiness of the body of Rockcliffe and the recovery abilities of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, he didn't know how many times he would have already died by now. However, after endless times of surviving fatal encounters, it finally transformed into a determined comprehension. Shoo! The 9th flash of sword chi appeared at the same time, shining stunningly. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Ding Yuan Shin cursed loudly. Ling Han had already formed 2 flashes of sword chi from battling with him. A whole 2 flashes. One had to know that even he himself only possessed 7 flashes of chi. But Ling Han, who, too, originally only had 7 flashes of chi, now possessed an additional 2 flashes. This was the comprehension that a real genius would get when trapped between life and death. Ling Han gave him a thumbs up and, weak but filled with battle spirit, said, "I now pronounce you a gold medal sparring partner." Good. Applause. Hunyo began clapping her small hands from where she was standing. Ding Yuan Shin howled to the skies in his fury. This really made him too indignant. He had come to hunt Ling Han down, kill him, and snatch away the treasures the latter had, who said that he was here to be a sparring partner. After howling enough, he calmed down and drew out a spiritual talisman. This time, he was going to kill Ling Han at all costs. Oh no, no, let's flee quickly. Ling Han recognized with a single look that the spiritual talisman was a barbarian bull spiritual talisman which could greatly increase a cultivator's ability. He had been in tight enough straits in the beginning, and if he faced a Ding Yuan Shin that had used a barbarian bull spiritual talisman, then merely being scratched by the wind created from a strike would be able to shatter even his bones. He was here to find a sparring partner, not to go to his death. He had already broken out into a run. Hunyo's speed was even faster. She caught up with him in a few steps, jumped onto Ling Han's back and called out happily, "Jo, run quickly, you two." Ding Yuan Shin clenched his teeth. These two actually dared to joke around in front of him. He clapped the barbarian bull spiritual talisman onto his body. Although this was a spiritual talisman used to increase one's power, it was not the type to increase speed. However, with a power upgrade, it would still increase the user's speed slightly. He was really driven to desperation, and would spare no expense just to kill Ling Han. Chapter 419, Refining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Chapter 419, Refining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Indeed, with the power upgrade from the Barbarian Bull Spiritual Talisman, though there was no surge to Ding Yuanshin's speed, there was still a little increase. After a few steps, he soon caught up with Ling Han. "Do you think you're the only one with a spiritual talisman?" Ling Han laughed. He drew out the final Swift Cloud talisman and smacked it onto his body. Instantly, his speed shot up. There was a maximum limit to the effectiveness of the Swift Cloud talisman. For a user in the spiritual pedestal tier, the speed upgrade it offered was only about 20%. However, Ling Han was still in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and thus the upgrade he got still doubled his original speed. Instantly, he once again distanced himself from Ding Yuanshin. Ding Yuanshin could not help but grit his teeth. He drew out a trump card, and Ling Han would draw a trump card of his own to deal with it. Could he really kill this unbelievably young elite? He ceased his advance and gave the matter some consideration, then decided to give up hunting down Ling Han. Not only that, he also decided that he would leave the North region and venture into the Middle State. Otherwise, if he continued to stay in the North region, perhaps he would need another 10+ years before he could manage to break through to the Flower Blossom tier. Leave. Anyone who could manage to make it to the prodigy role naturally had no lack of a decisive will. He immediately exited the Dark Devil Forest and headed directly to the Middle State without even returning to his own clan. Ling Han naturally did not know of Ding Yuanxin's decision. After he recovered from his injuries, he began to leave behind carved messages to provoke Ding Yuanxin again. But even after 5 days had passed, he still did not see Ding Yuanxin appear, guessed that the latter might have given up his plans on hunting him down. Surprisingly decisive of him. Ling Han nodded. Ding Yuanxin had seen the treasure that he had and could still leave so decisively. He was indeed a character. Still, without a sparring partner, he could only work hard and train on his own. Thankfully, he was already in the middle period of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which was already quite fast. Ling Han still continued to search for various spiritual herbs on one end, as well as cultivating on the other. A month had passed and he successfully gained 2 types of spiritual herbs that the Black Tower did not have yet. Furthermore, his cultivation level finally reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If you refine the heavenly luck stone at this moment and use the installation of power from the Black Tower, you will be able to maximize the effects, Small Tower hinted. Ling Han nodded agreeably and drew out a piece of the heavenly luck stone. This was actually a stone bead, and when he crushed it, the inside turned out to be hollow. There was a kind of liquid inside there. The refreshing fragrance of this liquid wafted into his nose. Meanwhile, Hunyo also took out a piece and similarly sat in a cross-legged position. She was even more direct. She simply threw the piece of heavenly luck stone into her mouth and chewed on it for a bit. Ka, and the rock was crushed. However, there was no odd signs at all. What feeling as if your insides were boiling, and waves in your sea of consciousness, it was as if nothing happened at all. Ling Han knew that the heavenly luck stone's effects would only be seen when he broke through to the next tier. It would allow the cultivator's battle prowess to instantly soar up another 4 or 5 battle stars. Exactly how much the increase would be would depend on how sturdy the foundations for the cultivation level was. Ling Han had not eaten this thing in his last life, but he had obtained one for the sake of his smallest disciple, Jiang Yufeng. That brat only had 7 battle stars of battle prowess in the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but when he broke through to the flower blossom tier, he actually still had 6 battle stars of battle prowess. The higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it would be to challenge a stronger opponent. If it was not for the heavenly luck stone, Jiang Yufeng would only have a maximum of 3 battle stars when he broke through to the flower blossom tier, so that was proof of how awesome the heavenly luck stone was. Ling Han mused ruefully for a moment, then exited the Black Tower together with Hunyo. They began to head towards where the crimson-red chilling ice grass was growing. They hadn't walked for very long, when Ling Han felt a shiver creep up his back. He immediately stopped walking and said, "Old wretch from the Thousand Corpse sect, how long do you intend to keep following me?" Elder Nine Clouds walked out of the dense forest, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He had witnessed Ling Han enter the midst of the demonic chi with his very eyes. That was something that even he was wary of and dared not come into contact with. Yet Ling Han not only walked out of it alive, he looked extremely lively and conscious. There was absolutely no sign that he had been turned insane by the demonic chi. Exactly how many treasures did this brat possess? Elder Nine Clouds' greed blazed. He knew that Ling Han could enter the Black Tower, and so had been trying to find a chance to attack at a time when Ling Han was unguarded the most to kill him instantly. Otherwise, if he once again allowed Ling Han to duck into the Black Tower, then he could only return without achieving anything. "Young man, you have already drawn the attention of our sect. Even if I cannot do anything to you, there will be even stronger people appearing next time to take your life and snatch away your good fortune. They are also going to refine you into a corpse soldier," he forced out through clenched teeth. He had never imagined that a junior in the spiritual ocean tier would be so hard to deal with. Ling Han gave an "oh," and asked curiously, "How strong are they?" "Hehe, do you want to probe me? You are really too naive. Do you think that I'm a 3-year-old kid?" Elder Nine Clouds sneered. Ling Han drew out a stalk of ginseng and said, "Be good. Tell me, and I'll give you a stalk of ginseng." Fuck. Elder Nine Clouds was driven to fuming rage. Did this brat really think of him as a dog that he would tempt him in this way? His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He declared, "Junior, if I do not refine you into a skinned corpse soldier, I swear that I will no longer be human." You speak as if you are still human, Ling Han mocked. Die. Elder Nine Clouds shouted harshly. The only one who will die is you. A booming voice resounded and a sturdy figure emanating an oppressive aura shot out. Fist Emperor. Elder Nine Clouds' aged eyes tensed, and he showed signs of wariness. Though the other had not broken through to the flower blossom tier for very long, he had managed to form Fist Ray already, and had even managed to battle the golden blood demonic ape to a standstill. One could not help but tremble in the face of such battle prowess. Moreover, the Thousand Corpse sect depended on the corpse soldiers they controlled. Their personal battle prowess was not too impressive. Furthermore, though the other had suffered injuries after battling the golden blood demonic ape, not only had he recovered from his injuries after so many days, his ability had also advanced further as he had broken through to the second layer of the flower blossom tier. One could not help but gasp at the fact that he could still advance so fast even after he had broken through to the flower blossom tier. The Rain Emperor was a dominating figure. When his eyes turned upon Elder Nine Clouds, an endless killing intent appeared in them. Monster from the Thousand Corpse sect, kill. He curled his hand into a fist and delivered a punch. The fist ray appeared in bright brilliance. This was a deadly weapon that had exceeded Qi. One could say that even if Ling Han managed to form 30 flashes of sword Qi, they would still be unable to stand against the weakest fist ray. This was a one-sided domination due to the difference in quality. Of course, if Ling Han managed to condense the 30 flashes of sword Qi into sword ray, then that naturally would give him a dominating advantage against a fist ray that had been condensed from 10 flashes of Qi. Although Elder Nine Clouds was in the 5th layer of the flower blossom tier, he was completely incapable of standing against the Rain Emperor, who had already formed fist ray. Within a few moves, he was already wailing. He exclaimed harshly, "Fist Emperor, I do not want to become your enemy, but if you continue to be overbearing, don't blame me for being merciless. So what if I am? Any person that I want to kill has never managed to survive." The Rain Emperor used the Son of Heaven fist technique. The fist ray moved with a brilliance, possessing terrifying might behind it. Elder Nine Clouds gave a sharp whistle, and a strange noise was immediately heard from some distance away. Very soon, an iron coffin slid over. Peng! The coffin lid shot open and a corpse soldier jumped out. It was completely silver in color, as if it was forged from silver. Level 3 silver armored corpse, Ling Han said. This corpse soldier had reached the limit for a silver armored corpse. Kaka, that's right. This is a level 3 silver armored corpse. After my various methods of tempering and refining, its ability is now close to the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. Elder Nine Clouds haughtily declared. Fist Emperor, it's still possible for you to leave now *****. He didn't finish and cursed that was because one of the fists of the Rain Emperor had already shot forward grandly. Chapter 420, Battering Away. Chapter 420, Battering Away. The Rain Emperor was still the Rain Emperor, dominating, unwavering like an emperor, and with a firm resolve. Elder Nine Clouds quickly manipulated the corpse soldier to receive the oncoming barrage of attacks. Pu, 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 pu. Endless muffled noises were heard. The Rain Emperor's punches battered the corpse soldier, but only left behind multiple very light wounds. It was indeed a level 3 silver armored corpse. This defense was comparable to the best kind of level 6 forging materials. Even fist ray practically left no damage. However, the Rain Emperor paid it no mind. He had the dominating character of an emperor. His punches continued to rain down, determined to batter the corpse soldier into dust. Elder Nine Clouds smirked. If they were only talking about defense, this corpse soldier was even stronger than the demonic ape, and only lacked power and destructive ability. But there was no need for him to kill the Rain Emperor. It was enough to contain him. "Young man, are you still going to flee now?" He smirked. The fact that he possessed a spirit tool that could contain living creatures was an unbelievably shocking secret. He did not believe that Ling Han would dare to use it in front of the Fist Emperor. In this manner, he had gained a chance. Ling Han smiled and said, "No. Haha, so you are prepared to die." Elder Nine Clouds' killing intent intensified. "No, I still have a helper. Ling Han looked towards the northwest and called out, Brother Ao, please lend me a hand. What? Elder Nine Clouds followed Ling Han's lead and looked towards the direction he was looking at, but did not detect any movement. He scoffed, Brat, don't make this unnecessarily complicated. Ho ho, a grand cultivator of the flower blossom tier, and yet the sensory abilities are beneath spiritual ocean tier ones? Does the Thousand Corpse sect all consist of such trash? Laughter resounded, and a person walked forth in midair. It was Ao Feng. Elder Nine Clouds instantly frowned. Why was there another cultivator of the flower blossom tier? Though this man, too, had just broken through to the flower blossom tier recently, who knew how many battle stars he possessed? Most importantly, for members of the Thousand Corpse sect, their personal battle prowess was really not that remarkable. Otherwise, one who was in the 5th layer should have absolute confidence in his victory against an opponent in the 1st layer. Grandmaster Ling is indeed an extraordinary genius, Ao Feng complimented. He, too, had witnessed Ling Han run into the midst of the demonic qi but did not suffer the slightest bit from its effects, which was something that left him shocked. Furthermore, he had been standing so far away to observe the battle just now, but Ling Han had still discovered his presence. This kind of divine sense was really terrifying. One had to understand that Ling Han had been in the heaven tier in his last life, and even if only a sliver of the divine sense of the heaven tier was left behind, if one were talking about sensory abilities, not even someone in the spiritual infant tier could catch up to him. Thank you for your praise, Brother Ao. Ling Han smiled, then began to fervently egg him on. Brother Ao, this is one of the dregs of the Thousand Corpse sect. Please help to eliminate him and remove this poisonous tumor for the world's peace. Of course. Ao Feng nodded, seeming to be very righteous. However, internally, he was extremely displeased. His original intention was to allow the Rain Emperor and Elder Nine Clouds to battle to the point that they were both severely wounded. He would then step out to calmly deal with the situation. He had never thought that Ling Han would call him out ahead of time. After all, he had only just broken through to the Flower Blossom tier, and unlike the Rain Emperor who had formed Fist Ray and was a real ruler, his battle prowess was only slightly above 2 or 3 battle stars. Against Elder Nine Clouds, it would really be difficult to decide the victor. However, the Thousand Corpse sect actually dared to set up a branch right beneath the nose of the Winter Moon sect, obviously with devious plans in mind. As an elder of the Winter Moon sect, since he had broken through to the Flower Blossom tier, he was naturally promoted from attendant to elder. Now that Ao Feng had seen a member of the Thousand Corpse sect, what logic was there in simply standing by and watching? His right hand shook and a plain-looking sword appeared, covered with an obscure pattern. Ling Han's eyes lit up. This was a level 6 spirit tool. He surmised that it had to be a family heirloom of the Ao clan. Most importantly, the forging materials to create a level 6 spirit tool were really too rare, so such a spirit tool could only be passed down the generations. One could not simply forge a new one as one liked. Elder Nine Clouds' expression became serious. His arms spread out and moved. A greyish corpse chi came to being, which slowly twined around his figure. Corpse chi and demonic chi were different methods that could achieve the same result. Demonic chi could cause one to go mad, whereas corpse chi was poisonous. Even if one in the Flower Blossom tier inhaled it for too long or was exposed to it for too long, his whole body would similarly rot, or even transform into a corpse soldier. Ao Feng waved his sword and advanced, not daring to keep any of his power in reserve. 8 flashes of sword chi danced, fully displaying the might of a ruler. Ling Han nodded. If he were being honest, Ao Feng was indeed a genius, and though Ling Dongxing was not an idiot, either, the latter did not have as much talent as the former. If the two of them battled on the same cultivation level, Ling Dongxing would definitely lose. Therefore, it was necessary to have a dominating advantage in terms of cultivation level in order to allow Ling Dongxing to emerge victorious against Ao Feng. For anyone else, this might be a very difficult thing to do, but for Ling Han, it was practically a piece of cake. The spirit herbs in the Black Tower were becoming more abundant, and he had absolute confidence that he could help Ling Dongxing soar to the peak period of the spiritual pedestal tier in 3 years' time, and break through to the spiritual infant tier in 20 years' time. However, above that, his advance would slow down to the speed of a tortoise's crawl. After all, after the breakthrough of one's cultivation to the spiritual infant and the deity transformation tier, alchemical pills would only be effective in helping to accumulate origin power. Without enough comprehension of the cultivation level, no matter how many alchemical pills you were given, it would be a waste. Only genuine natural treasures had the amazing effect of assisting one in comprehending the great Tao. This was a blessing from nature. The matter of vengeance could be advanced slowly. Rescuing his mother from prison had to be the priority now. If he had to wait until Ling Dongxing possessed enough power, then his mother would have experienced too much suffering. Ling Han thought. The battle happening in front of him now was very exciting, but as someone who had once been in the heaven tier in his last life, it was not to the level that would interest him. He would not be inspired or draw inspiration from watching. Ao Feng had the help of a spirit tool and obviously had the upper hand. But the Rain Emperor was gradually falling into a disadvantage. The defense of a level 3 silver armored corpse were practically invincible, so how was he to continue playing this game? If the Rain Emperor was in the late period of the Flower Blossom tier, then he would still have a chance to win, but currently, he was too far from that. The situation was very delicate. If the corpse soldier could kill or force the Rain Emperor to retreat and then join forces with Elder Nine Clouds, then they would definitely be able to subdue Ao Feng easily. However, on the other hand, if Ao Feng managed to kill Elder Nine Clouds first, then the result would similarly be decided. So would it be the Rain Emperor who would first fail to hold on, or Elder Nine Clouds? Without a doubt, it was Elder Nine Clouds who would first beat the drums of retreat. What a joke, for someone as dominating and forceful as the Rain Emperor, the stronger the opponent, the more his battle spirit would blaze. He was the standard type that would use battle to cultivate his own battle spirit, and make use of a bloody battle to break through his own limits. How could he possibly give up on such a good opponent like a level 3 silver armored corpse? Elder Nine Clouds fled, and the Rain Emperor and Ao Feng were hot on his heels. However, after a while, the two of them returned. Naturally, they had lost track of him. After all, Elder Nine Clouds had too much of an advantage in terms of cultivation level. Running away only depended on one's speed, and the ability to battle an opponent stronger than oneself was not of much use here. Ao Feng exchanged some pleasantries with Ling Han, and also invited him to visit the Winter Moon sect as a guest. Then, he conversed with the Rain Emperor too before begging his leave and departing. It was unknown whether he was heading back to the Winter Moon sect, or continuing on his quest to find Han Lin. Grandmaster Ling, we have not seen each other for several months, and you have indeed once again made me see you in a new light. The Rain Emperor smiled. His voice was filled with ruefulness. He was certain that Ling Han would definitely become an Earth-grade alchemist, but he had not foreseen that it would happen so quickly. A young man that was still over a month away from reaching 18 years old was shockingly already an Earth-grade alchemist. Who would dare to believe such a thing? Congratulations to you for breaking through to the Flower Blossom tier and casting off your mortal shell, Rain Emperor. Ling Han smiled in return. Chapter 421, Thrashing a Dog. Chapter 421, Thrashing a Dog. Though there was quite a gap between Ling Han and the Rain Emperor in terms of cultivation, Ling Han's status as an Earth-grade alchemist was enough to let the two of them stand on equal footing. Strictly speaking, an Earth-grade low-level alchemist even had slightly higher status than a Flower Blossom tier cultivator. The two of them conversed for a while. When he found out that Ling Han was going to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass, the Rain Emperor indicated that he would like to go with Ling Han and give him a helping hand. Ling Han gladly accepted. After so many days, who knows how many people were already aiming for that spiritual herb. Though he believed that no one below spiritual infant tier could obtain it successfully, there might be cultivators in the Flower Blossom tier standing guard by the side. Who would seize it from him when they saw that he had succeeded? What was he going to do then? The secret of the Black Tower was already known to some people, and Ling Han did not want to allow it to spread even wider. Thankfully, whether it was Ronghuan Xian, Azura Demon Emperor, or Elder Nine Clouds, they all only thought that he had a spirit tool that could contain living things and did not know that it was the Black Tower, which was not as ordinary as merely being able to contain living creatures. It's now even more difficult to see through this little girl. The Rain Emperor turned to look at Hunyo. In the past, he could still somehow manage to sense that the little girl had the cultivation of the gushing spring tear, but now it was as if Hunyo had turned into mist and looked very hazy to his eyes. Hunyo giggled in response. Since Ling Han treated the Rain Emperor politely, she would give him face as well. Otherwise, who would bother? The three of them journeyed towards the location of the crimson-red chilling ice grass. It was located in the core area in the first place, so after only less than half a day, the three of them had arrived at their destination. However, they were not the only ones. 3 other people were already here. Yarrow Hui Yu, Tong Ji-ming, as well as Zhu Xian'er. These 3 obviously wanted to obtain the crimson-red chilling icegrass as well, yet were unable to do so. Though Zhu Xian'er's face could not be seen, it had to be filled with anxiety. Sensing the approach of Ling Han and the others, Yarrow Hui Yu's eyes swept over them and immediately lit up brilliantly, as if his gaze had transformed into uncountable sharp blades that shone with luster. An endless battle spirit gushed out from him. He stared fixatedly at the Rain Emperor. Wang, wang, wang. The long sword at his waist actually released humming sounds, as if it wanted to exit its sheath on its own. The Rain Emperor was the same. A mighty aura spread out from him with multiple flashes of divine light surging around him, which transformed into multiple solid fists. The 2 of them had already taken a fancy to each other in the great battle with the demonic ape, but afterwards, both had suffered heavy injuries and thus naturally went off to heal their wounds, as well as digest the battle comprehension they had obtained through this battle. This was the second time they had met, and both were at their best condition. As a result, battle spirit instantly soared in both of them. Young man, you still dare to appear. Have you forgotten what my lord has said? Tong Ji-ming smirked coldly at Ling Han in the past. Yarrow Hui Yu had declared that the next time he saw Ling Han, he was definitely going to take his life. Ling Han glanced at him, and said, "Whose dog is this that only knows how to bark crazily all day and night? If the owner's not going to take care of properly, I'm going to kill it." Yarrow Hui Yu withdrew his attention from the Rain Emperor and said calmly to Ling Han, "If you have the ability, then you can kill if you like." Tong Ji-ming sneered. He was in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier and his battle prowess was at least 12 stars, so how could a young man in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean compare to that? Pu. He was instantly astonished. The 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Not even 3 months had passed, but how had this guy leaped from the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier all the way to the 9th? This. Previously, he had praised Yarrow Hui Yu for being in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at 17 years old, and this young man in front of him now was in no way inferior. Could it be that this would be the second coming of Yarrow Hui Yu? However, so what if he was in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? There was still a gap of a complete tier between the both of them, and that was a gulf that no amount of talent would be able to compensate for. "See how I shall suppress you," he shouted loudly. Since Yarrow Hui Yu had allowed him to act, he would naturally not have any more reservations. Ling Han smiled calmly. He was able to deal even with Ding Yuanxin who had 15 battle stars, so what more Tong Ji-ming, who only had 12? Furthermore, he had already broken through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so his battle prowess had naturally increased by another 1 or 2 battle stars. However, he did not have the time to tangle with him. Anyways, he wanted to collect the crimson-red chilling icegrass, so he might as well just play his trump card directly. "Small tower," he called out internally. Hong, small tower instantly moved the black tower to begin the installation of power. His aura began to spike madly. The middle period, the late period, the peak period of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he only paused momentarily before passing over the threshold smoothly and into the spiritual pedestal tier. Then, it was the first layer, the second, the third, and soared crazily like this all the way, until his cultivation finally stalled at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Pu. 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 The Rain Emperor, Yarrow Hui Yu, Zhu Xian'er, and Tong Ji-ming all widened their eyes at the same time, completely incapable of believing what they saw happen with their very eyes. What kind of alchemical pill is this that would allow one's cultivation to increase by a whole major tier? The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xian'er knew that Ling Han was an Earth-grade alchemist, so it was not too strange for him to be capable of concocting an alchemical pill that could raise his cultivation level temporarily, but they had never heard of there being one that could grant one such a great increase. Meanwhile, Tong Zhiming's mouth twitched. Though he had not battled with Ling Han before, merely based on Yarrow Huiyu's judgment about Ling Han, he knew that the latter definitely had terrifying battle prowess. And now that the both of them had equal cultivation levels, how was he supposed to continue? For the sake of your master, I shall spare your life. Ling Han waved his hand. A flash of sword chi appeared and shot forwards. Tong Zhiming hurried to parry, but this flash of sword chi directly flung open his guarding arms. With a pu, it streamed past his neck, leaving behind a wound that instantly gushed out blood. His expression changed due to shock. This was obviously Ling Han being merciful. Otherwise, he was definitely capable of killing him in an instant. Of course, if Ling Han really made the move to kill him, Yarrow Huiyu would definitely not sit by and watch quietly and act to save him. Yarrow Huiyu looked contemplative. The current Ling Han was still much weaker than him, yet he still made his hands itch incomparably, wanting to challenge the former to a battle. However, whining against such a weakling was absolutely of no help to his formation of sword heart. Thus, he forcefully suppressed the urge. Ling Han did not give him a second glance and directly walked towards the crimson-red chilling ice grass from the fiery area. He had taken a petal of the golden flower of the stone, so need not fear the flames. Zhu Xian'er's eyes lit up. Could it be that Ling Han was capable of collecting the crimson-red chilling ice grass? She instantly cast off her thoughts of stopping him. She was completely incapable of plucking this spiritual herb, but if it fell into Ling Han's possession, then there was at least some hope. Ling Han strode forwards. Wang, the thunder battle armor activated and multiple flashes of lightning appeared and repelled all the flames. He now had the ability of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, which was enough to activate the defense ability of the thunder battle armor until the extent of the late period of the flower blossom tier. Yarrow Huiyu, that kind of monster, obviously was only in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, but had at least 10 battle stars. However, battle prowess being 10 stars did not mean that defense was also 10 stars. The might of the flames would attack from all directions, so it was useless no matter how monstrous your battle prowess was unless he could destroy this whole place with a wave of his sword. Therefore, in this place, Yarrow Huiyu's resistance was at most comparable to a normal cultivator's in the 3rd or 4th layer of the flower blossom tier. The maximum was the 5th layer. It was definitely no higher than that. Ling Han quickly traveled half the distance, but as he continued to advance, his speed slowed down. Numerous holes appeared on the thunder battle armor. The flames entered through these holes and battered Ling Han's body. Instantly, a charred hole would appear. However, Ling Han did not even wrinkle his brow, and merely continued to walk forwards. Chapter 422 Obtaining the Spiritual Herb. Chapter 422 Obtaining the Spiritual Herb. In Ling Han's eyes, there was nothing more important than obtaining the crimson-red chilling icegrass on this trip. In exchange for this spiritual herb, he could even sacrifice the heavenly luckstone and the primal chaos source rock. He was suffering under enormous agony, but looked as if he felt nothing. The body of rock cliff could cut off his sense of pain, and the indestructible heaven scroll was fully protecting the source of his life, and added with the protection offered by the thunder battle armor, this granted him the qualification to continue advancing. The Rain Emperor and Yarrow Huiyu both looked astonished. If they were merely talking in terms of defense, Ling Han was already superior to the both of them. However, in battle, defense was a passive ability because a powerful level of attack also belonged to defense, capable of forcing an opponent to the level that he could not fight back. So even if defense were slightly weaker, what could that impact? Their astonishment was due to that suit of battle armor that Ling Han was wearing. It was really too shocking. It was actually capable of raising the defense to the level of passive protection of a cultivator in the peak period of the flower blossom tier and protect Ling Han from all angles. However, for some unknown reason, they kept feeling that there was some flaw in this battle armor. That was because a hole had been pierced through the thunder battle armor, which was the reason for this faint feeling of strangeness. It was still fine for lower cultivation level, but the higher the cultivation level, the more magnified this flaw would be. After all, it was not a completely whole, flawless level 10 spirit tool. Zhu Xian's eyes lit up in the meantime. She hoped very much that Ling Han could successfully collect the spiritual herb. As long as he succeeded, there would still be room for discussion. Ling Han did not bother with what the others were thinking. He simply strode forwards, intending to take as much advantage of this chance to collect the crimson-red chilling icegrass as possible. Otherwise, he could only wait until after he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier to once again make use of the installation of power from the Black Tower. But he still wanted to suppress his own cultivation level and return to completely perfect this cultivation level, and did not intend to break through so quickly. Thus, if he could make use of this installation of power to obtain the crimson-red chilling icegrass, that was naturally best. Moreover, this kind of trial was also a chance for him. 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. The spiritual herb was within reach, but Ling Han looked to be in great pain. The might of these flames was really too terrifying. Even if he had cut off his sense of pain, he was still unable to escape it completely, because he felt as if his divine sense was also burning, making him feel extremely horrible. He definitely had to be as fast as possible. Ling Han took another step forward and finally arrived next to the spiritual herb. However, he did not pluck the spiritual herb, but rather drew the demon birth sword, intending to dig out the spiritual herb. As long as he could store it into the Black Tower alive, then who cared what kind of environmental conditions it needed? It would be able to continue growing in the Black Tower and could grow even better, as one day inside would be equal to 3 years. This was a level 7 spiritual herb, so Ling Han naturally did not intend to use it only once. Jiang, the sword scraped against the white rock underneath, instantly creating innumerable sparks of fire, and left behind a light trace. However, the tip of the sword solidified into a flash of snow white. An icy cold feeling quickly spread out from the blade of the sword, which made Ling Han shiver and feel as if all the blood in his body was about to freeze. He planned to slice this piece of rock in the middle and store it into the Black Tower as well. The tip of the sword thus naturally stabbed into the icy ground, which caused the attack of an icy air. And what was even stranger was that though the other half of the sword's blade was in the fiery ground, it did not cancel out the cold air, but rather cooperated with it extremely well. After a surge of cold air, then came a surge of burning heat, making Ling Han's blood that had been frozen just moments ago boil again in an instant. It was such agony that he immediately spat out blood. Fuck, this was the genuine feeling of experiencing ice and fire at the same time. Ling Han gritted his teeth, but had no intention to stop at all. Ding, 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 he used the demon birth sword like it was a chopper and continuously sliced away at the rock. Thankfully, it was a level 10 spirit tool. If the grade was slightly lower and it was used to slice away at this kind of place where ice and fire wove together, the durability of the weapon would definitely be decreased. Within a few moments, it'd probably be shattered. However, even so, because Ling Han's ability was at solid disadvantage, he did not slice very quickly. Meanwhile, his left arm, left leg, and right leg were beginning to be charred, and the fragrance of barbecued meat gradually wafted out. His right arm was still fine because he focused the indestructible heaven scroll to heal it and gave up on the other unimportant parts. Hunyo was very anxious and jumped around in panic. However, she was still filled with wariness for this ice and fire area, and did not dare to rush in thoughtlessly. Moreover, Ling Han was still standing and waving his sword, so things had not advanced to the worst extent. If Ling Han fell down, she would definitely scramble over and try her best to drag Ling Han out. When his 2 legs were about to be burnt off, Ling Han used the indestructible true fluid without hesitation. He had a total of 3 drops, which would allow him to recover completely for 3 times. Wang, a majestic essence of life flowed within his body. Instantly, all his injuries were healed. Ding, 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 Ling Han was chopping more energetically. But when the essence of the indestructible true fluid was completely expended, his arm and legs began to once again show signs of being charred. Meanwhile, Yarrow Hui Yu and the others were watching dumbfounded. He was actually able to recover instantly from such serious injuries. How terrifying was that kind of divine pill that possessed such recovery abilities? If they managed to get one, then wouldn't that mean that they would be granted an extra life? Yarrow Hui Yu was not yet aware of Ling Han's identity, but Zhu Xian'er and the Rain Emperor both nodded internally. He was really worthy of being an Earth-grade alchemist. He was awesome. If this was known to Liu Jitong and the other Earth-grade alchemists, they would definitely break out into tears. How could there possibly be such an awesome Earth-grade alchemical pill in this world? Only the legendary sacred medicine, the 9 Immortals pill, possessed such effects, but that was a heaven-grade mid-level alchemical pill, and there was no longer anyone who could concoct it in this world. Ling Han sliced and sliced. Ding, 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 ding. The sounds of impact did not stop, which made Yarrow Hui Yu and the others all confused. Why did he not simply pull out the spiritual herb and leave, but chopped the rock so determinedly instead? Could it be that he actually wanted to get a live one and take it back so that he could continue to grow it? Did he actually have a suitable environment for it? They had really guessed correctly. However, there was absolutely no way that they would actually guess that there existed a priceless treasure like the Black Tower. Ling Han quickly used the second drop of indestructible true fluid. However, this time, it was obvious that his recovery speed had slowed down, and the medicinal effects had also disappeared faster. Even such a godly item would make one slowly immune to it. True, a drop of indestructible true fluid was practically capable of reviving a dead person, and furthermore, healed his injuries completely. If there was not any kind of limits to it, then it would really be illogical. When the effects of the second drop of indestructible true fluid completely vanished, Ling Han had already chopped off 2/3 of the white rock. He could not help but sigh. If he could grasp Sword Ray at this time and used 10,000 techniques returned to one at the same time, perhaps one strike would be enough to completely chop this piece of rock in two. There was no other way at this point, so he could only keep circulating the 4 Seasons sword technique. If he used the mysterious 3000, then Yarrow Hui Yu would definitely be able to tell. At that time, then it was even possible that the old monsters of the Heaven's Sword sect would move out and interrogate him forcefully to find out where he had learnt this sword technique from. By then, even if he could invent some kind of reason, how could the Heaven's Sword sect spare an outsider that had learnt a sword technique of their sect? Thus, before he had adequate power, Ling Han did not want to let the Heaven's Sword sect know that he had learnt the 3 styles of black origin. I chop, 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 chop. Only after a while was Ling Han forced to use the last drop of indestructible true fluid, and by this time, the white rock was close to being chopped off completely. Ling Han seemed to have gone mad. There was no longer any indestructible true fluid to extend his life for him, so he had to chop the white rock completely before he collapsed. Chapter 423. Chapter 423, Battling Yarrow Hui Yu. Charred skin once again appeared on Ling Han's arms and legs, but there was only a tiny sliver of the white rock left. He gave a loud yell and made a vast slash with his sword. Peng! The rock finally broke. He stretched out a hand and pressed down on it, whilst communicating with the Black Tower. Xiao, he had stored both the broken rock along with the scarlet rainbow frost icegrass inside the Black Tower. Retreat. He hurriedly retreated, and in a few steps, exited the zone of flames. He quickly drew out multiple alchemical pills which he swallowed down like crazy. In the meantime, he continuously circulated the indestructible Heaven Scroll to heal his injuries. You're already cooked, Hunyo said with a hint of heartache in her voice as she raced over, but when she gave a few sniffs with her little nose, her saliva dripped out of her mouth. Smells nice. The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Was this little girl going to pounce on him and take a bite? Grandmaster Ling, please give the crimson-red chilling icegrass to me. No matter how many origin crystals, I will pay you for it. Zhu Xian'er immediately exclaimed. Grandmaster Ling? Yarrow Hui Yu wore a thoughtful smile. He's an alchemist. Earth-grade low-level alchemist, the Rain Emperor answered. This time, Yarrow Hui Yu finally looked surprised. He had estimated that Ling Han was at most a black-grade mid-level alchemist, or high-level at best, but he had never imagined that Ling Han was actually an Earth-grade alchemist. Don't think lesser of an Earth-grade low-level alchemist. Once one passed to Earth-grade, it was like a cultivator had passed into the flower blossom tier. It was a completely different plane. A young man who had yet to reach 18 years old was actually an Earth-grade low-level alchemist. Yarrow Huiyu's talent in martial arts was indeed worthy of receiving a thumbs-up from mostly everyone in this world, but if his talent was compared to Ling Han's accomplishments in alchemy, Ling Han was in no way inferior, or might have even exceeded him drastically. That was because when he was at Ling Han's age, he was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. That was only comparable to being a black-grade mid-level alchemist. But what about Ling Han? In martial arts, he had reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as well. He was a really terrifying young man. No wonder his heart would throb with the feeling that Ling Han would be one of his greatest rivals in the future. Yet Ling Han did not pay them any attention. He merely continued to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll. The effects of the alchemical pills were also continuously taking effect, allowing his body to recover at a rapid rate. As long as he was not constantly being attacked by the flames, the indestructible heaven scroll could display its effects to the fullest. After about 10+ minutes, he stood back up. Though his injuries had not recovered completely, most of his injuries had. Ling Han, hand over the crimson-red chilling ice grass to Sienna and I can spare your life, Yarrow Huiyu said calmly. He had said before that the next time he saw Ling Han, he would take the latter's life. The Rain Emperor immediately humphed and interrupted, I was just thinking to have a battle with you. He decisively accepted the challenge to battle in Ling Han's stead. Yet Ling Han smiled and said, Rain Emperor, just leave this battle to me. There was still half an hour left of the installation of power from the Black Tower, so how could it be wasted? Ha 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 ha. Yarrow Huiyu laughed loudly, but as he laughed, he kept shaking his head. Though I have a high opinion of your potential, the current you is not acceptable. You are not yet qualified to battle me. You'd only find out after a battle. Ling Han waved the demon birth sword. Faint patterns appeared, and a terrifying pressure emanated from the sword. This kind of pressure had strong suppressive effects on any cultivator below the flower blossom tier, but its effects were limited against those upwards. After all, from that cultivation tier onwards, the cultivator had stepped beyond the limits of mortality. Yarrow Huiyu humphed and said, I was originally very expectant of the day that you will come to challenge me in the future, but if you insist to seek your own death, I do not mind granting your wish, either. He was someone who had no fear of killing in the first place. He did not have the habit of treasuring talent, either. It was only a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing for him to make a 2-year promise with Ling Han, so naturally, he did not mind killing Ling Han before then. Mr. Yarrow, Grandmaster Ling is an Earth-grade alchemist. Zhu Xianna reminded coldly. Though she very much wanted the crimson-red chilling ice grass, she had no intention to take Ling Han's life for it. Moreover, the two of them were still supposed to head to the Middle State to battle together, and were allies. How could she possibly sit by and watch? Yarrow Huiyu smirked. Others might fear the Alchemist Society, but how could he? The internal workings of age-old sects like the Heaven's Sword sect were far stronger than anyone dared to imagine. Even the Alchemist Society would not be willing to trifle with them easily. So what if he killed Ling Han? Could it be that the Alchemist Society would dare to come to Heaven's Sword sect to apprehend him? If you can block 3 sword strikes from me, I will spare you, he said darkly. Don't think that his heart had softened. It was an absolutely one-sided domination for one in the flower blossom tier against an opponent in the spiritual pedestal tier. Wouldn't 3 moves be enough to kill? Ling Han raised the demon birth sword levelly and answered calmly, you won't be able to kill me. These were honest words. Currently, he was, at any rate, in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and at least before the installation of power from the Black Tower ended, he would be able to activate the peak period of the flower blossom tier level defense from the thunder battle armor. As for when the installation of power from the Black Tower ended, naturally, he would then beckon over the Rain Emperor to take his place. He was definitely not a man who was willing to die for useless pride. First strike. Yarrow Huiyu acted. He casually waved his finger, merely forming 5 flashes of sword chi. But who was he? Not only was he in the flower blossom tier, he had also proclaimed himself as the second strongest swordsman in the world. Though that was a bit of an exaggeration, his power in the flower blossom tier was still unbelievably strong. It was as if these 5 flashes of sword chi were furious dragons that could easily kill a cultivator in the 9th layer of the spiritual tier over 100 times. In the first place, the gap between the spiritual pedestal and the flower blossom tier was like the gap between heaven and earth. What more when it was the kind of monster that Yarrow Huiyu was? Ling Han was unafraid and waved his sword to parry. Pu, 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 pu. He could not slice apart Yarrow Huiyu's sword chi, but the thunder battle armor managed to easily block all 5 flashes. Ling Han wasn't even forced back from the impact. Interesting. Yarrow Huiyu smiled. Previously, he had already seen the defensive ability that the thunder battle armor displayed against flames, but being able to resist flames and being able to defend against a powerful attack were 2 completely different things. For example, an earthen wall could resist fire, but facing a powerful attack, it would definitely be broken. After this one strike, Yarrow Huiyu's thought that it was a fluke had disappeared. The thunder battle armor could not only defend against fire and ice attacks, but was also effective against powerful attacks. He had to get serious. Yarrow Huiyu drew his sword, his expression serious. For someone as proud as he, since he had declared that he would strike 3 times, he was definitely not going to strike a 4th time. Otherwise, that would ruin the core of his art of the sword, and he could never possibly form sword heart in this lifetime. He once again waved his hand. Xiao, 9 flashes of sword chi appeared simultaneously, and charged towards Ling Han. Peng. These flashes of sword chi were once again perfectly dispersed by the thunder battle armor. How could normal attacks be effective against defense at the level of the peak period of the flower blossom tier? Yarrow Huiyu's expression increased in seriousness. He did not mean to take Ling Han seriously at all, but the might of the latter's battle armor had exceeded his expectations. He had to use his best move, or he would really be unable to kill this young opponent. He took in a deep breath and his treasured sword trembled slightly. Endless sword chi was exuded from all over his body, as if the wielder had also transformed into a sword. His body was the sword, his consciousness was the sword, all was the sword. Ling Han was greatly moved. In his last life, he had naturally not seen the Sword Emperor attack at full strength, and Yarrow Huiyu's trying his best now instantly gave him inspiration. So the path of the sword could be walked in this way too. He wanted to walk the path of the strongest, so naturally, he had to absorb the strongest points of various paths. Mysterious 3000, slashing all 3 realms. Yarrow Huiyu struck. Xiao, xiao, xiao. A total of 1,200 flashes of light actually shone with luster from the strike. Ling Han smiled. It was indeed the mysterious 3000, he had made the right bet. Chapter 424, A Narrow Victory. Chapter 424, A Narrow Victory. 1,200 sword flashes. This meant that Yarrow Huiyu had shot out 11 flashes of sword chi. That was how the total number of sword flashes reached the high point of 1,200. This was an extremely terrifying attack. A cultivator in the flower blossom tier was capable of shooting out 1,200 sword flashes, and every flash was equivalent to Yarrow Huiyu's full power attack. If these sword flashes crashed onto the thunder battle armor, they were perfectly capable of crushing its flower blossom tier level defense. They were too concentrated and too powerful. Ling Han was also slightly surprised. He had foreseen that when the first 2 strikes of Yarrow Huiyu produced no effect, he would definitely use the mysterious 3000 in the 3rd strike. The latter's pride and self-esteem would not allow the words he had declared to fall empty. However, he had never thought that Yarrow Huiyu had indeed hidden his real ability. He had actually formed as many as 11 flashes of sword chi. He was indeed a very ambitious man. He had already formed 11 flashes of sword chi, yet did not choose to consolidate them into sword ray. Was he planning to form 29 flashes then? The Rain Emperor was also greatly stirred. He had formed fist ray only after he had formed 10 flashes of chi, But he had never thought that 10 flashes was not the limit at all. There was nothing to be done about that. Due to the limits of the power structure, there was no way that the Rain Emperor's understanding and knowledge about martial arts could compare with a disciple of Heaven's Sword sect. This had nothing to do with personal talent, but was rather due to the gap between their respective legacies. Ling Han moved and used the shadow wind motion, and actually managed to weave around the 1,200 sword flashes. Extremely coincidentally and very amazingly, he avoided one sword flash after another, heading towards Yarrow Hui Yu in attack. That was too inconceivable. The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xian'er could not help but gape. That was definitely Yarrow Hui Yu's strongest attack. If it was them, even if Zhu Xian'er broke through to the Flower Blossom tier, she would only be able to stay on the defense against such an attack. Otherwise, she could only choose to retreat early on to avoid facing such power directly. But soon after, they immediately shook their heads internally. That was 1,200 sword flashes. It was absolutely impossible to defend against. Unless they possessed an overwhelming advantage in cultivation level, that would be the only way they could parry what was equivalent to the fierce attack of 1,200 Dao Hui Yu. The only option was to retreat and dodge. This was the conclusion that the two of them had reached, yet Ling Han did the exact opposite. He actually went straight up against the 1,200 sword flashes and charged towards Yarrow Hui Yu to attack. But it seemed as if he could really succeed. He had already managed to dodge over 700 sword flashes. How could this scene not strike the Rain Emperor and Zhu Xian'er dumb? Meanwhile, Tong Zhiming was gritting his teeth as well, yet he felt as if the pain caused by the injury on his neck had increased slightly. Only Hu Niu kept clapping her hands, calling out in praise. 800, 900, 1,000, 1,000 and 100, 1,200. Ling Han actually managed to pass all 1,200 sword flashes and arrived in front of Yarrow Hui Yu. His sword streaked past, and he used the 4 seasons sword technique, spring, summer, autumn and winter cycled. Peng! Yarrow Hui Yu was struck and his figure was instantly flung backwards from the impact. However, multiple patterns lit up on his body, and when he touched the ground, there was only a very shallow wound on the left side of his face. Blood was seeping out, but it was as if it was mercury. It dripped slowly and exuded a silvery white light. Ling Han withdrew his sword. He managed to turn tables around in the final attack because he, too, had cultivated the mysterious 3,000. Moreover, he had formed 9 flashes of sword chi himself, which was only 2 flashes of sword chi less than his opponent. As a result, he naturally knew how these sword flashes circulated. Though the additional 200 flashes did give him some trouble. However, he did have the divine sense of the heaven tier after all, and his opponent was only in the flower blossom tier, so the additional 200 sword flashes were not too much of a problem. This was what led to a mirror-clear cultivator of the 9th layer of spiritual pedestal tier overcame the strongest killing move of his flower blossom tier opponent and managed to land his own attack. Even if he had only left behind a very tiny wound on Yarrow Hui Yu's face, which was completely superficial. A hush fell all around them. The Rain Emperor was astonished, Zhu Xian'er's beautiful eyes shone brightly, whereas Tong Zhiming trembled. Only Hu Niu was clapping her hands wildly and broke the silence with her applause. Yarrow Hui Yu's expression changed repeatedly, but finally returned to impassiveness. He exuded an absolutely relaxed air and even smiled. He said, "Not bad, not bad. In my whole life, this is the first time that I have been wounded by someone who is 10 years younger than me. I've said before that I would only strike 3 times. Ling Han, there are still 20 months. Within these 20 months, even if I meet you once again, I will pretend that I have not seen you. However, 20 months later, no matter where you're hiding, I will find you and kill you. I will step on your corpse and break through to the 2nd level of my path of the sword." He had completely recovered his forceful manner and brimmed with confidence. He turned to Zhu Xian'er and said, "Xian'er, I'm sorry. I was not able to help you collect the spiritual herb, but please don't worry. I will immediately return to the middle state and definitely help you get spiritual herb." After saying so, he nodded at Tong Zhiming, and the two of them turned around and left. Ling Han's eyes stayed on Yarrow Hui Yu's figure. The next time they met, he would definitely not take advantage of the fact that he had an understanding of mysterious 3000. Instead, he would use real battle prowess to defeat this second coming of the Sword Emperor. Sword Emperor, it would be good if you had managed to enter the Reel of Gods. I shall definitely seek you out in the future for a good battle. Ling Han's confidence soared. He was certain that he would be able to break through to the Flower Blossom tier in 2 years' time. Grandmaster Ling, how much crimson red chilling ice grass do you need to use to concoct your alchemical pill? Please leave some for Xiena. Zhu Xiena bowed to Ling Han. Whether it was because of his identity as an Earth-grade alchemist or because of the battle prowess he currently possessed, she dared not use forceful means. Furthermore, she was most impressed by a genius of martial arts. Ling Han, with his cultivation of the 9th layer of spiritual ocean tier, though he had temporarily raised his cultivation to the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, was capable of wounding an elite cultivator of the flower blossom tier, especially when it was the kind of monster that Yarohui was. It naturally filled her with an endless respect for him. Her beautiful eyes blazed, extremely enchanting. Meanwhile, the Rain Emperor smiled slightly and said, Ling Han, I will still stay for some time in this dark devil forest, and when I reach the 9th layer of flower blossom tier, I will enter the other regions to travel. Therefore, if you encounter any trouble during this time, you can come here and look for me. Many thanks, Rain Emperor. Ling Han raised his clasped hands in thanks. There was a protective screen that separated all 4 great regions and the middle state. A weaker person could freely pass through, but the higher one's cultivation, the harder it would be to pass through this barrier. For example, it was possible for a cultivator in the spiritual infant tier to pass through, but their cultivation would be greatly decreased. Thus, if one wanted to travel to the various regions and the middle state, the flower blossom tier was the best cultivation level for it. One would still be strong enough to ensure his own safety, yet would not be weakened in the process of passing through the barrier. The Rain Emperor looked over Ling Han and Zhu Xiena a few times, laughed loudly, and leaped through the air and left. Zhu Xiena's face reddened from the way he was looking at them. Thankfully, she had a white veil to cover her face, so no one could see how she currently resembled a peach. Grandmaster Ling, she said to Ling Han shyly, her beautiful eyes clear and like honey, enough to make one's heart drunk with the sweetness. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, 1 month later, bring enough origin crystals or other ingredients. Formation techniques would be all right as well. I can sell the crimson red chilling ice grass to you. If it was 1 month, there should be quite a few stalks of crimson red chilling ice grass in the Black Tower, so it would be fine to sell off 1 stalk. Really? Zhu Xiena asked, extremely excited. Ling Han revealed an impatient expression and countered, I am an Earth-grade alchemist. Do you think I would lie to a little girl like you? Instantly, the corner of Zhu Xiena's mouth twitched, and she almost charged up to him to stab him with her sword. Chapter 425, Return to Extreme Young City. Chapter 425, Return to Extreme Young City. Zhu Xiena, ranked 13th in the prodigy roll of the North region. In the ranking tournament that would come about a month later, it was a sure thing for her to be ranked among the top 3. It was not an impossible thing for her to be ranked first even. Furthermore, she was the greatest beauty of the North region. Without even showing her whole face, she was capable of making the excellent disciples of Heaven's Sword sect be at her beck and call, trying their best to gain her favor. How enchanting was she to be able to do that? Yet someone actually ignored her charms and actually rebuked her as a little girl. Zhu Xiena was really very displeased. If Ling Han was an old man in his 50s or 60s, she would have nothing to say. But it was obvious that this guy was 3 or 4 years younger than herself, yet acted all aged and experienced. How could she not explode with anger? Most importantly, Ling Han's expression seemed to be so natural. He did not look at all like he was playing a cat and mouse game with her. This was practically like stabbing a few dozen times directly into Zhu Xiena's heart that had always been so confident. At this moment, she really felt a strong impulse to pull off her veil. She was sure that once Ling Han saw her magnificent beauty, he, too, would fall captive to her charms. However, firstly, she had never wanted to make use of her beauty, and secondly, She was more fearful that Ling Han would fall for her and use the crimson-red chilling ice grass, or his status as an Earth-grade alchemist, to force her to his will. Thus, she gritted her teeth and suppressed this kind of impulsive urge. Grandmaster Ling, you look to be only 17 or 18 years old. If Xiena is a little girl, then what are you? She countered. Silly girl, whether one is mature or not is decided by one's mental age, not by the way one looks. I know already just by listening to you that you're really a silly girl. Ling Han shrugged, turned and left. Meanwhile, Hunyo made a face at Zhu Xiena, then caught up to Ling Han. Tugging on the corner of Ling Han's shirt, she giggled in laughter. Damn. 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 Zhu Xiena felt like she was about to go crazy. How could there be such a man that would drive one to such anger? He was really too irritating, wasn't he? He really made one want to throw something at him, right? Ling Han was very satisfied. This trip to the Dark Devil Forest was practically perfect. Not only did he reap massive benefits from this journey, he had also managed to conjure a demon emperor and solve a huge problem. He had also met the Rain Emperor again. This dominating emperor had already set out on his path of a ruler, and his future achievements were boundless. He brought Hunyo with him back to Extreme Yang City. If Yinlan already managed to obtain the 9-leaf black Ganoderma for him, he would be able to concoct the Restore Spirit pill. Zhu Xiena actually caught up with them and traveled alongside Ling Han. This made Hunyo very displeased. She felt that this woman that liked to move her behind as she walked was really too annoying. Why did she keep trying to seduce her Ling Han? Ling Han had already transplanted the crimson-red chilling ice grass. Actually, this stalk of spiritual herb had yet to reach full maturity, but after growing in the Black Tower for over a dozen days, it should be mature enough. Thus, when Ling Han returned to Extreme Yang City, this stalk of spiritual herb was fully grown, but bore only 3 pieces of fruit. Yet the main stem very rapidly wilted, as if it had transferred all its life into these 3 pieces of fruit. The fruit could not be used. The value of the crimson-red chilling ice grass lay in its stem. However, these 3 pieces of fruit meant that over a month later, Ling Han would be able to gain 3 stalks of 100-year-old crimson-red chilling ice grass. At that time, he would use one and sell another to Zhu Xiena. He would leave the last to continue bearing fruit, and in the future, he would no longer be short of this spiritual herb. He returned to the inn, yet found out that Liu Yutong and the others had long moved out. However, they had left baying an address for Ling Han with a waiter. Naturally, it was because Liu Yutong and Li Sai-chan had decided, and finally found a new home for them. When they reached Extreme Yang City, Zhu Xiena floated away, whereas Ling Han went to his new home. It was located in the eastern part of the city. From the outside, it looked very ordinary, but there was actually a sizable lake inside. Willow trees hung over the lake, making for a very pleasant scenery. Furthermore, there were platforms and towers, water pavilions, and stone bridges, making one feel as if one had found a spot of calm in chaos. They had actually even hired guards at the doorway. They halted Ling Han's advance. This made Hunyo display her ferocious true nature, and she almost bit them. Thankfully, Zhu Wuju just happened to come out and hurriedly welcomed Ling Han into the residence. He also informed the guards that this was the real owner of the Ling residence. They had also hired some servants to work in the manor. After all, the manor was extremely large, and Liu Yutong and the others had other matters they needed to do, primarily cultivation and pill concoction, so how would they have time to do trivial tasks? Soon, Liu Yutong and the others came out to receive him. Ling Han roughly grasped the current state of events. Whether it was Forget Not or Alchemist King Pavilion, due to Liu Jitong's care, naturally no one dared to make any designs on them. However, because Ling Han had left for too long, the ingredients at Forget Not were almost finished. From last month onwards, they had even used the method of selling those dishes that needed these ingredients and limited the amount. Otherwise, they would have had no more ingredients to sell by now. It was the same for the Alchemist King Pavilion. The higher-grade alchemical pills that Ling Han had concocted were practically sold out, and although Li Sai-chan had considerable talent in alchemy, she was still a very far way off from the Alchemy Emperor. Thankfully, Ling Han finally returned. Naturally, business matters had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Line Han withdrew a large amount of fresh fruits and vegetables as well as some livestock from the Black Tower and told Zhu Wuju to deliver them to Forget Not. As for alchemical pills, when he had the time, he would enter into the Black Tower to concoct them. After all, they needed time to be concocted, and could not just be withdrawn like those food ingredients. When it was time for lunch, Gong Letian came without an invitation. He was already addicted to the good stuff sold in Forget Not, yet after they limited the supply of dishes, he could only eat one excellent dish with each meal. How could his mouth, which had grown picky, tolerate this? Thus, he would come every day to join them for a meal because Liu Yutong and the others had long become picky as well and had to have dishes made with the food ingredients from the Black Tower for every meal. When he saw that Ling Han had returned, this guy immediately pounced on him and wailed, "Brother, you have finally come back. I'm almost about to die from waiting for your meat." Ling Han could not help but wear a dark expression. Did this guy know how to talk? He wanted to eat his flesh. Ling Han had returned today, so everyone naturally needed not continue conserving their supplies. Multiple kinds of gourmet dishes were served. They fiercely ate their meal, causing all of their stomachs to become rounded from the feast. After Gong Letian left, Ling Han gathered all of them around him. "This is the heavenly luck stone," Ling Han said, and explained the effects as well. This made everyone astonished. If they refined this small rock, then when they broke through to the next tier in future, they would gain an additional 4 or 5 battle stars worth of battle prowess. That was really too shocking. How could such a priceless treasure exist in this world? They were people of Rain Country, and due to their limited knowledge, they naturally could not have heard of such a treasure. Everyone was extremely excited. Even elite cultivators of the Flower Blossom and Spiritual Infant tier would fight over such a treasure so that they could help their own juniors raise their ability, but Ling Han actually managed to get as many as 9 pieces of such a rock. It was really astonishing. They were filled with gratitude and each swallowed a piece of heavenly luck stone. Once they broke through to the next major tier, their battle prowess would spike up a long way. This would be proven earliest through Liu Yutong and Zhu Wuju, because they were both already on the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. They had already strengthened their cultivation foundations close to perfection and were ready to break through. Kenyi would be much slower. He had just broken through to the 2nd layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier and still had a very long way to go until the Spiritual Pedestal tier. Guang Yuan was worse off. Because he was cultivating anew, he was indeed advancing at a faster rate than Kenyi. However, because his cultivation had regressed, even if he once again broke through to the Spiritual Pedestal tier, he would still only be recovering his original ability and not breaking through. As a result, the benefits offered by the Heavenly Luckstone would only be visible when he broke through to the Flower Blossom tier. On the other side, Li Sai-chan was unwilling to swallow the Heavenly Luckstone no matter what. To her, this was an extreme waste. She only needed the advancement of her cultivation level, and it would be enough for her to be able to concoct alchemical pills. For her, very powerful battle prowess was really not of much use. Chapter 426, Tiandu Thunderstar Array. Chapter 426, Tiandu Thunderstar Array. Ling Han did not coerce her, either. Having Li Sai-chan refine the Heavenly Luckstone was indeed a bit of a waste. Since she did not need it, then they'd just put it aside for now. Anyways, no matter when, this kind of priceless treasure would be able to fetch an astronomical price. He headed to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and asked if there was any news about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma. The result of his queries brought him much unexpected joy. Yin Hong had already gotten some news about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, and would be able to obtain it in another 1 or 2 months' time. There was nothing to be done about that. A level 7 spiritual herb was extremely valuable, and Yin Hong was only the beloved daughter of the pavilion master of the North Region branch of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, so she had limited means at her disposal. Most importantly, being the pavilion master of a branch of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion did not mean one had absolute authority. After all, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was a very, very large party. It was just another 1 or 2 months' wait. Ling Han was still willing to wait. Moreover, about a month later, the prodigy role of the North Region would once again open up, and though Ling Han was not interested to participate, He might as well see how strong the prodigies of this era were. Right, do you still have any other array techniques? I can take out some cultivation or martial arts techniques to exchange for them, Linghan said. Yin Hong rolled her eyes and replied, don't talk to me in the tone that you used to speak with Kid. Just take a look at the goods. Linghan waved his right hand, and instantly, 10 books with martial arts techniques appeared on the table, every one of them earth grade. Yin Hong flipped through them and could not help but look shocked. She asked, where did you steal so many martial arts techniques from? Don't you worry about that. Are you willing to trade? Linghan said, smiling. Yin Hong could not help but be moved, but said, didn't I give you a little Tianyuan spirit snake array previously? I already learnt that, Linghan said very casually. Pu. Yin Hong instantly spat out a mouthful of tea. Already learnt. What kind of joke was he playing here? That was a level 4 array technique, and you already learnt it in a few months' time? One had to understand that array techniques could not be learnt overnight. One had to first learn level 1 array patterns, followed by level 2, level 3, then level 4. Ordinarily, 1 or 2 months would be enough to learn level 1 array patterns, but level 2 would at least need 1 or 2 years, level 3 would require 4 to 5 years, and level 4 would at least need over 10 years to be learnt successfully. It would be easy in the beginning, but the further one advanced, the slower the rate of improvement. Thus, array techniques were only support techniques, and no one would actually only cultivate array techniques. Yin Hong could also be considered a genius of array techniques, yet even she had spent 3 whole months to fully grasp the little Tianyuan spirit snake array, and this was still based on the fact that she had already grasped a large amount of level 4 array patterns. You're bluffing. She did not believe him. Linghan smiled slightly and spread out his right hand. 7 golden patterned rods appeared, and the little Tianyuan spirit snake array appeared in his consciousness. Instantly, the power of nature gushed forth, and a white snake suddenly appeared. What? Yin Hong stood up abruptly, her beautiful eyes wide. You are practically a monster. Hey, even if we know each other well, I will still get angry if you insult me like that, Linghan said, smiling. Yin Hong still looked dumbfounded and said, I thought that I was a genius of array techniques, but when compared with you, I feel like I'm an idiot. True, I am a genius. Linghan nodded. Yin Hong could not help but sigh. Can't you be a little modest? This is the truth. If I act modest, that would be being pretentious. Acting pretentious is something that only bastards would do, Linghan said in mock seriousness. Yin Hong instantly broke out in laughter, and as she laughed, her beautiful body shook with her peals of laughter, without worrying if she would ignite Linghan with her voluptuous movements or that he would be overcome by lust and push her down. After a while, she said seriously, with your level in array techniques, perhaps you may be even more impressive than I am a year later, and can take my place as the main force in the array techniques competition. Then you'd have to increase my pay. Linghan said seriously. Yin Hong rolled her lovely eyes at him and said, just a few words of praise and you're over the moon already. However, be it for array technique, alchemy, or martial arts, every region can send 3 people, and the one who has achieved the best result will be used in the judgment. The higher your achievements in array techniques, the higher the possibility of us getting higher marks in array techniques. All right, I'll trade with you. She drew out an ancient book and placed it in front of Linghan. Tiandu Thunderstar Array. Linghan cast a glance over it. These words were written on the book's cover. A level 5 array technique, Yin Hong declared, her expression somber. However, this is the highest level of array technique that I can obtain. In the case of level 6 array techniques, I am not yet qualified to learn. But even if I have, I could not possibly teach you, either. There are very strict rules about that. Yet Linghan was pleased. The might of a level 5 array technique was equivalent to the spiritual pedestal tier, and he was only a hair's breadth away from breaking through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Level 4 array techniques, on the other hand, were not of much help, as very soon, they would not be useful to him anymore. Deal. He grabbed the book of array techniques and left. Yin Hong could not help but grit her teeth. She was, in any case, a great beauty, and was naturally charming in disposition. Was this brat blind? The reason why Ling Han was able to advance so fast on the path of array techniques naturally was related to the fact that he had a sliver of the divine sense left behind from the heaven tier. Furthermore, he had entered into various ancient historical sites in his last life, so had studied much about array techniques. Thus, he had not begun from absolute zero. He flipped through the book. This Tianju Thunderstar array could induce the attack of lightning, and it was divided into two versions. One version was the main array, which needed one to lay out 136 array stones. Even a level 5 array master was not able to control it freely, and could only set it up as a dead array. A so-called dead array was similar to the Mountain Protection Great Array. It could only be set up in a certain location, and would only be activated when an intruder entered into the bounds of the array. The advantage was that it was completely automatic and possessed great force. There were also a lot of disadvantages, however. Firstly, it could not be moved, so once it was set up somewhere, it would stay there. Secondly, it could not differentiate between enemies and friends, so one wrong step, and he could still activate the array to attack him. I could set up one here. It could block any enemies at the level of the spiritual pedestal tier, Ling Han mumbled. However, there were 136 array stones needed. How many materials would that need? He was definitely unable to set it up for the time being. There was another version which was a supplementary array. The power of this array was much smaller, but it only needed 36 array stones. It could be considered as the compact version of the main array. The advantage of this array was that it could be actively controlled completely by the array master, and he could command it to attack as he desired, just like the little Tianyuan Spirit Snake array. Looks like I'm going to have to spend a lot. Thankfully, 3 bone-forming pills had been auctioned off for 7,000 2-star origin crystals, as well as a dozen over 1,000 1-star origin crystals, which would be enough to buy them. Ling Han huffed out a breath of air. Looking at things, array techniques were also extremely costly, and were not that much better than alchemy. However, though array masters could also earn money by helping another to set up a great array, once the array was set up, it could be used for more than 100, or even 1,000, 10,000, and more years. It was not a consumable item like alchemical pills. As a result, array masters most probably did not earn as much money as alchemists. Thankfully, I am the alchemy emperor. Otherwise, if I want to cultivate martial arts and have to refine array stones as well, how else would I earn so much money to burn? Ling Han shook his head. As he walked on the streets, he could clearly see that there were considerably more cultivators around him. The Northern Region Prodigy Tournament was about to begin, which would naturally attract cultivators to come. Some were here to participate in the tournament, whereas some were here to watch the excitement. Shui Jiyu Cheng, battle with me. A large shout was heard from somewhere ahead of him. You maniac, this is a busy street in the city. If we battle here, how many people would die? Both of us would be chased out of Extreme Young City, an angry voice yelled back. Now that my battle spirit has arisen, I don't care about so much. Come battle. A figure leaped up high. The figure was quite small in build, yet was wielding a heavy hammer that was much taller than him. Merely the hammer was taller and wider than his body. Idiot. Another person leaped up and jumped onto the roof of a building, then left quickly. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.